Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. In India, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi says farmers don't trust Prime Minister Modi due to his long history of violence. In a tweet, he reiterated support for thousands of farmers protesting at Delhi borders for over a month against agriculture reforms. The protesters say there is no new year for them until the government repeal laws that only favor big corporates. The United Kingdom has formally ended its partnership with the European Union as the one-year transition period for Brexit ends. The trade deal agreed last week will ensure no import taxes or tariffs on goods crossing between Britain and the continent, but there will be new custom rules and checks for the country to adopt. The World Health Organization has listed the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use. The US death toll has crossed 345,000 while the infections are approaching the 20 million mark. While in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 71 lives and infected over 2,400 people overnight. The country's death toll is over 10,100, while the tally of infections has topped 482,000. Globally, there are more than 1.8 million deaths and 83 million cases. Sudan says its army has retaken control over all lands along the border with Ethiopia. In a press briefing, Foreign Minister Umar Qamar al-Din said the borders have already been demarcated. He said Khartoum has not received anything official from Addis Ababa about not recognizing the borders. In the National Basketball Association, Chicago Bulls beat the Washington Wizards at 133-130 to earn a sweep of the team's back-to-back series. Otto Porter Jr. had 28 points and 12 rebounds, while Zach LaVine added 22 points to lead their team to the victory. This was Washington's fifth consecutive defeat. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. In India, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi says farmers don't trust Prime Minister Modi due to his long history of violence. In a tweet, he reiterated support for thousands of farmers protesting at Delhi borders for over a month against agriculture reforms. The protesters say there is no new year for them until the government repeal laws that only favor corporates. The government has held several rounds of talks with farmer unions but failed to convince them to end their protests. The new reforms allow the government to stop buying grain at fixed prices, leaving farmers at the mercy of corporations. The United Kingdom has finally ended its partnership with the European Union. This has marked the country's greatest shift on the global stage in modern times. Details in the following report.
As the clock struck 11 p.m. in London, the one-year transition period for Brexit came to an end, and the UK left the bloc's single market and customs union. The trade deal agreed last week will ensure no import taxes or tariffs on goods crossing between Britain and the continent. But there will be new custom rules and checks for the country to adopt. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the move will set the country free to pursue new opportunities as an independent global power.
This is an amazing moment for this country. We have our freedom in our hands, and it is up to us to make the most of it. And I think it will be the overwhelming instinct of the people of this country to come together as one united kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, working together to express our values around the world.
French President Emmanuel Macron bid farewell to the UK, saying it will remain a close ally of France.
2021, quoi qu'il arrive.
Tonight, for the first time, a country, the United Kingdom, will leave the European Union. A few days ago, we sealed an accord to organize our future relationship with it while protecting our interests, our industry, our fishermen, and our European unity. The United Kingdom remains our neighbor and also our friend and ally.
But critics believe Brexit will harm the country's economy and diminish its international standing. Some held a candlelit vigil in Brussels to mourn Britain's departure, finishing a relationship of almost half a century.
The U.S. military says it is bracing for a possible attack on American personnel and interests in Iraq. This comes before the first anniversary of an Iranian general who was killed in an American drone strike in Baghdad. Iran has warned the U.S. against any misadventure in the Gulf. Details in the following report. It's been almost a year since Iran's General Qasem Soleimani was killed by the U.S. in Iraq, pushing Tehran and Washington to the brink of war. Vowing retaliation, Iran targeted several U.S. bases in Iraq throughout the year. Tensions are mounting once again, with Washington announcing a nuclear submarine is being deployed to the Gulf. In another show of force meant to deter Iran, the U.S. flew strategic bombers over the Gulf for the second time this month. This follows President Donald Trump's remarks that he will hold Iran responsible for an attack on Americans. Enraged over Washington's latest measures, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says the U.S. is trying to fabricate a pretext for war. In a tweet, he said Iran will defend its people's security and vital interests. Meanwhile, Iran's prosecutor claims London-based security company G4S played a role in the killing of General Soleimani. However, the Pentagon decided to send home the only Navy aircraft carrier operating in the Middle East. This might help reduce tensions with Iran. The U.S. has urged Twitter to act against threats by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps commander. In a tweet, State Department spokesperson Cale Brown called Ismail Qani's commands brazen acts of terrorism. Brown questioned the implementation of Twitter's terms of use to counter Qani's threats. Earlier, Qani threatened U.S. President, CIA director, and other U.S. officials involved in the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. Qani said Iran will avenge the unjustly shed blood. The Taliban say they are fully prepared for the second round of intra-Afghan talks scheduled for the 5th of January in Doha. In an interview, Taliban spokesperson Mohammad Naim said they will return to what was agreed upon. The first round of talks between the two sides started on the 12th of September and went until December 11th. The talks are part of the landmark Doha peace deal signed in February last year. The deal is aimed at ending nearly 2 decades of war. Violence, however, remains high in Afghanistan, with the two sides blaming each other for attacks. Experts have warned that a surge in violence could derail the peace process. The World Health Organization has listed the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use. The U.S. total has crossed 345,000, while the infections are approaching the 20 million mark. Globally, there are more than 1.8 million deaths and 83 million cases. Details in the following report.
While the world rings in 2021, the coronavirus pandemic continues to wreak havoc across the globe. Today marks 1 year to the day that the World Health Organization first heeded the viral disease in China. The virus went on to kill millions of people and devastate the global economy since then. Over the year, the U.S. has been hit the hardest by the outbreak. Several states are shutting down prisons and moving inmates after a battering wave swept local jails. While President Donald Trump has extended bans on green cards and work visas through a large group of applicants to March 31st. And the New York City mayor has announced to vaccinate 1 million citizens in January.
The most important New Year's resolution I could possibly offer you: in the month of January 2021, we will vaccinate 1 million New Yorkers. 1 million people we will reach in January. This city can do it. The amazing healthcare professionals of this city are ready.
England prepares to reopen its Nightingale field hospitals as a surge in cases of the new strain of coronavirus has put pressure on hospital beds. Scientists are still unsure about vaccine efficacy against the mutation first found in the UK. In Ireland, health officials say the situation is worse than the official figures. But French President Emmanuel Macron struck a note of hope and vowed to accelerate vaccination campaign.
In 2021, whatever happens, we will be able to face the health, economic, social, terrorist and climate crisis, which will not go away on January 1. The first months of the year will be difficult, and at least until the spring, the epidemic will weigh heavily on life in our country.
Meanwhile, China is the latest country to report cases of the new variant.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 71 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This pushes the country's death toll to 10,176. Health officials reported 2,463 new infections overnight. Meanwhile, there are more than 34,000 active cases in the country. The health ministry says out of over 482,000 countrywide cases, more than 437,000 people have recovered. Sudan says its army has retaken control over all lands along the border with Ethiopia. In a press briefing, Foreign Minister Umar Qamar al-Din said the borders have already been drawn. He said Khartoum has not received anything official from Addis Ababa about not recognizing the borders. Ethiopia earlier threatened to launch a counter-offensive if Sudan does not stop expanding its territories. Tensions flared when Ethiopian farmers expelled Sudanese from the disputed Al-Fashqa region. Khartoum also accused Ethiopian forces and militias of ambushing Sudanese troops along the border. In Algeria, at least 20 people have been killed and 11 injured after a vehicle overturned in the south. Authorities say the accident occurred on a key transit route for illegal migrants near Mali's border. The pickup truck carrying the passengers has been destroyed completely. Algeria has seen an influx of sub-Saharan migrants in recent years, many pouring across the country's southern border. Migrants use Algeria as transit to reach the Mediterranean and then cross into Europe. At the onset of 2021, world leaders have sent their people messages of hope and courage after a difficult year wrecked by the pandemic.
The world is bidding a hearty farewell to 2020 without the usual fanfare and public gatherings because of the novel coronavirus pandemic. World leaders are wishing all a year full of peace and kindness. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden says he's looking forward to a year that heals and unites people. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the nation rediscovered a spirit of togetherness despite the loss of so many lives due to the virus. He said Britain celebrated health workers and braved the biggest crisis in generations. Russia's President Vladimir Putin thanked frontline medical workers, hoping that the world will defeat COVID-19. China's Xi Jinping resolved to move towards a goal of common prosperity with perseverance and courage. Pakistan's President Alvi remembered the plight of Kashmiris and Palestinian Muslims on the advent of the new year.
In Mali, authorities have charged 6 people, including a former prime minister, with trying to mount a coup. In a statement, the public prosecutor's office said 6 people were under investigation for plotting against the government. It added that 5 are in custody, except for former Prime Minister Sisi, whose whereabouts are unknown. This comes at a time of turbulence in the country following the ouster of elected President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita in August. Threatened by international sanctions, the military handed power to a caretaker institution, which is supposed to last for up to 18 months until elections are held. Australia has changed the wording of its national anthem to recognize the indigenous people of the land. At a news conference, Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Australia is a timeless land of ancient nations. Morrison said the change is for people of all political views. Rights groups have struggled for decades to reconcile with the indigenous Aborigines people, whose arrival dates back some 50,000 years. Each year, Australians celebrate the national holiday as the first fleet on the 26th of January, while Indigenous people refer to it as the Invasion Day. On the first day of 2021, the air pollution level in New Delhi stood in the very poor category. The overall air quality index was recorded at 332. The visibility has dropped due to cooler temperatures and lower wind speeds that let deadly pollutants hang in the air. New Delhi has the worst air quality of any capital city in the world. A raging coronavirus pandemic has also heightened alarm over the health hazard posed by the choking smog. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now moving on to the sports stories. In the National Basketball Association, Chicago Bulls beat the Washington Wizards at 133 till 130 to earn a sweep of the team's back-to-back series. Otto Porter Jr. had 28 points and 12 rebounds, while Zach LaVine added 22 points to lead their team to victory. This was Washington's fifth consecutive defeat. The Bulls managed to win the game despite losing 4 players to health and safety protocols due to coronavirus. The Bulls are set to take on the Milwaukee Bucks and then host the Dallas Mavericks on Sunday. Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has been knighted in the Queen's New Year honours list. The Briton sealed the 7th driver's title at the Turkish Grand Prix in November, equaling Michael Schumacher's championship record. Hamilton, who had previously been made a member of British Empire, has become the 4th F1 driver to be knighted. He has now joined the ranks of Sir Jack Brabham, Sir Stirling Moss and 3-time world champion Stewart. Hamilton has not resided permanently in the United Kingdom since 2007, and his knighthood was included on the diplomatic and overseas list. Manchester United's Edinson Cavani has been given a 3-match ban for an offensive social media post. He has also been slapped with a £100,000 fine. The Uruguayan pleaded guilty to a Football Association charge of using insulting or improper words. Cavani sent the message after scoring a winner at Southampton on the 29th of November. The striker subsequently deleted the post and apologized when the meaning that could be attached was pointed out. Along with the ban and fine, Cavani must also complete a face-to-face education program. And now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.